morning. I'm David Iverson at Lazard Middle Market. I run our consumer food and retail practice. And I'm honored to know the 4 entrepreneurs that we have up here today. Some of them have been with the same company since they started doing the entrepreneur thing, and others have done this multiple times. 3 of them are products companies, and 1 is a service retailer. So they're all coming at this from different angles. But there's some themes that seem to go across everything we're seeing in consumer food and retail these days. And those are things like e-commerce, digital, the speed of information, the way companies use data that did not exist or that you couldn't do years ago, social media, and the influence of consumers on what actually big retail food and consumer does. And in some cases, perhaps an outsized reach of a small group of consumers. Related consumer preferences driven by millennials often. They want to be pampered, they want better for you, they want authentic, they want a story, they want different. And in food in particular, but across the board, a real distrust of big. Big Cheerios, big Kraft, big food. Nobody trusts it anymore. And today when we try to help figure out, at least hear the articulation of what's causing these folks to be so successful for disruption, those are some of the themes we're going to try to touch on. And of course, what we're seeing in some of these segments is that big food, big retail, big consumer can't innovate. They can't grow. And what they're doing is taking entrepreneurs like this and they're paying massive prices for them. And they can't do it on their own. So with that as a backdrop, I will start and ask the 4 of these entrepreneurs to introduce themselves. Rebecca, would you start?
Absolutely. My name is Rebecca Remley, and I'm the CEO of Wetherspoon Manuka Honey.
I'm Todd Leff. I'm President and CEO of Hand & Stone Massage and Facial Spas.
Jesse LaFlamme. I'm the owner and CEO of Pete & Jerry's Organics.
I'm Steven Singer. I'm the founder and CEO of Fody Food Company.
Thank you. I'm not sure everyone knows what everyone's company is. So working backwards again, just 20 seconds. What's Fody? What's Pete & Jerry's?
So Fody's a food company that specializes in better for you products for people that have irritable bowel syndrome and other digestive health issues. So we're a gut-friendly, a gut health food brand that is all centered around people that can't necessarily eat everything that's out there in the market today. And we try to cater our products for people that have, like I said, IBS or inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's colitis. And we avoid using specific ingredients like garlic and onions and honey and other different, other ingredients that cause problems for people in digestion.
So Pete & Jerry's is an egg company. We are the 2nd largest brand of eggs in the country, distributed nationally. And we achieve our business through a model of working with small family farms in about a dozen states. And we operate in the organic and humane free-range space.
So Hand & Stone is the only non-food company represented here. We're a nationwide chain of massage and skincare spas. Had basically with the concept of bringing these services to the middle market at a price that's more affordable, more convenient. We have grown the business from about $10 million in system-wide sales just 8 years ago to this year we'll do $400 million in system-wide sales in 400 locations through a franchise distribution model.
And Wetherspoon is a Manuka honey company. Manuka honey is harvested in New Zealand primarily, and it is a very specific type of honey. All honey is antibacterial and immune boosting, but Manuka honey has some properties that no other honey has. And so our company is all about bringing the honey itself and and products made from the honey to North America.
Good. Stephen, let's start with you. You didn't mention this, but about 20 years ago, you co-founded Glutino, which was a brand that provided all sorts of different foods in different formats that was gluten-free, and you were the first or one of the first to do that. Now you're doing Fody, which is a similar vein with a lot bigger potential issue or problem. It's been 20 years. What's changed?
I got older. I had 3 kids. No, what's changed? I think a lot has changed. When we started the company 20 years ago, we entered into a gluten-free world that was virtually unknown. You know, we sat with retailers that had no idea what we were talking about when we tried to introduce gluten-free products to the mass industry. You fast forward now, all the things that we had to do at Glutino, like newsletters and going to associations and cold calling retailers and just hoping for the best and trying to educate people the old-fashioned way. You fast forward to today, and you mentioned it before, social media. One press of the button, one post on Twitter, one post on Instagram, one post on Facebook, and millions of people have access to figuring out that we exist, that there's a diet now that's specific for people that have IBS and other digestive sensitivities. So I think so much has changed. For me personally, when you have the experience having gone through it already once and already built the network and figured out how to do the branding and the marketing and the trade shows and the product development and the innovation and everything that goes with the business, and then you fast forward 20 years, it's obviously a little bit easier to have had the experience, but it's also much easier. I don't want to make it sound easy, but it's easier to reach the masses and to help get the word out than it was back in time. It's not about TV advertisements or for a small entrepreneurial kind of, for smaller businesses. For us, it's all about just geo-targeting on Facebook or finding out where the groups are that have these that are passionate on Facebook in whether it be IBS or other digestive health arenas, and then just showing up there, but showing up virtually, which is a lot easier and a lot more powerful, and you can reach more people. So it's a lot has changed. Obviously, I can go through so many other details, but it's a big one in terms of communication.
Well, it would appear, judging from my experience and talking to some of you, that one of the things that is you mentioned the social media, the ability to access your consumers, but there seems to be a real problem with innovation in the big companies, because you're clearly not funded the way Nestle is. Jesse clearly has this. You all have these issues. So why is it that these great ideas that you could access the consumers, soak in the big folks, and they got a lot of money? Why is it that you're doing this and disrupting and they can't do it? Rebecca, let me take that to you.
Yeah, I think it's a risk-reward, personally. Although there is, we have more resources, we have more communication, better communication than we did 20 years ago, there's also a lot more noise. And so it's still a very high risk and high reward situation. And I think that there are certain individuals that are very well suited to it. And we each have our place, we each have our role.
So for you, one of the big things is in the individuals, the risk taking that exists today that doesn't exist in big corporations or didn't exist as much in your experience 20 years ago.
I think that's right. I think it's calculated risk, especially as Stephen said, for folks that have done it a couple of times. We stub our toe, right? We don't get it right the first time, but you learn a lot along the way, and so it becomes very calculated risk. But I think we were talking a little bit about one of the largest trade shows in the natural industry is called the Natural Products Show. It's 100,000 folks attend the show every spring, and the number of new entrants is climbing every single year. So there's absolutely a higher propensity for folks to take a risk, try something new, and get out there on their own.
But I think also you look at some of these big companies, and for what we feel is a big idea and what they see as a big idea, it's defined totally differently. So for someone in General Mills, for example, to get funding and to get someone to sign off on launching a gluten-free food brand, no way. They're not going to do it. Why would they do it? There's no proven market at the time. There is no, how big is the market? Oh, Glutino, we were able to build the brand to 100 million plus. But that's not that big for some of these giant CPG food brands. What they'd rather see is a bunch of companies go at it, see who's going to be the cream of the crop, and then knock on your door and say, hey, either they copy you or they buy you. So for them, it's a lot easier, and they don't mind writing the big check, to your point earlier. They'd rather do that than, they don't have the same entrepreneurial spirit that the folks like Rebecca and Jesse, like, that's not what they do. That's just not what they do. So I think for them, it's not big enough. And until it's big enough, then it's big enough. That's not really good English, but you get what I'm saying.
No, you're from Canada. Jesse, there seems like those are really good reasons. There seems like there could be some other things in your industry. The big egg producers build massive barns with cages, or sometimes they don't put cages in them and they call it cage free. It's a very industrialized business. You started out as one farm and contracted out some others, and slowly but very effectively have built out a new model, a new better for you, a new better for the world product. Why couldn't and why wouldn't a big egg company do that?
Yeah, they really can't, because it's the antithesis of their model, as you were talking about. They really only know commodity egg production, and in commodities, it's winning is scale and efficiency. So it's the antithesis of how they think. And I like to say that we're deliberately inefficient in how we produce our product, at least when it comes to the farm. And the reason for that is authenticity and following sort of a moral compass that we believe our consumers follow as well, how they want to see their food produced. It's really not at scale. It's on family farms. It's on a farm that should actually be recognized as a farm by a consumer. And this is completely against what commodity egg producers want to do at scale. They also, by and large, in our category, do not understand consumer packaged good branding. It's a relatively new concept. Branding within the egg category, with the exception of one very large competitor, hasn't existed for the last 20 or 30 years. That's changing rapidly. The category is being disrupted by players like us, but it's also very static and very hard to get a place in that category in retailers across the country. Okay, and if all of the three, or all of you have a brand, and it all stands for something very powerful, and you've referred to consumers, you've referred to other things. Todd, you've got a different model. You're in the service retail service model. Can you talk about the importance of the brand nationally, but also what happens when they want to have a local connection?
Well, it's interesting because of your comment on the distrust of large brands, but in our research and our experience, we find that consumers want to have that brand behind. They want to know what are the core values of that brand, but they want to deal on a hyper-local basis. They want to know who the person is in that particular facility, who is their favorite massage therapist. It's all about connecting, at that local unit. So, I think it's both sides. They want this national brand because it allows portability of our membership. We're membership-based, so they can use it anywhere in the country from the same facility, but they want to have that connection locally, and also to be able to target that consumer more locally. I think, one of the comments I hear is it's not just that big brands are maybe not doing it as well. I think that technology has made it easier for small brands to do it much better. And so that's been the great equalizer, for many, brands, is that with the technology today and the dropping cost of that technology, as a small company, you can do as effective a job as some of the bigger companies.
So when do the big folks realize what you're doing and what do they do about it? You know, and maybe it's a little different answer for everybody. Rebecca, you are introducing a product. I don't know how many people know what Manuka honey is, but you're introducing a product to the North American consumer that's relatively unknown. And you're dealing in a product that comes in a honey jar, and it could also be in cough drops and skin. So when you step back and think about that, how do you compete?
It has a lot to do with exactly what Stephen said. When the company started, 15 years ago, there was a lot of education, a lot of knocking on both retail doors and talking to consumers one-on-one. Sometimes that's how you build a category. We believe that at that time there was probably single-digit category awareness of Manuka honey in the United States. Very well known in Europe and Asia, but not well known in the United States. So that means that you spend a lot of time doing just that, building a consumer base. The nice thing about that is that it is absolutely then authentic and your concept is proven. Then as we scale, it allows us to add some other resources that are very dedicated toward this, the furthering of the brand, meaning personnel that have backgrounds and experience. When we built the plant in New Zealand, we specifically built it for the safety and quality levels that we needed it to be at, that we knew we needed it to be at to go after the North American retailer. And that was a jump ahead from our competitors. No one else had that same technology at the time.
Okay. And how come, or when, how come a big company can't just crush you?
Well, in our situation, it's really about supply. And at the end of the day, it is about authenticity. Having a entity in New Zealand, a third of our team are New Zealanders, and so they live and breathe the product, the industry.
And Jesse, what about you? Why can't these big egg people who produce eggs more cheaply than you do and have all the distribution, why can't they crush you, or can they? And they just haven't noticed you.
No, they're trying, and they've actually tried. We have our largest competitors developed really a fighter brand against us, trying to imitate what we're doing. And I think it really goes back to authenticity. It was frankly a little frightening to see that come onto the market, but by and large, it's failed miserably. They just haven't been able to execute and communicate with the consumer well. We're seeing that the consumer generally does their homework, where they just sort of sniff out something that isn't authentic to what they're looking for. So, it's still a bit of a fight, but it's not the challenge that we thought it would be, and it's really authenticity is the key.
Stephen, does that worry you? You started your company 2 years ago, and it's a free-from company. Does it worry you that Nestle or someone out here is going to say, hey, we can do that?
No, I mean, I think we focus on what we do. We're innovators. We're nimble. We're quick. We're flexible. We launch products. We have clean labels. We know exactly what we want to do, how we want to do it, where we want to go. We have relationships that are 20 years, that have been made and built for 20 years. And we recognize that, hey, if we do what we got to do and we grow our distribution, which is what we're doing right now, and getting our footprint across the United States and across Canada and into Europe, listen, they're going to come. It's no different than, Formula One racers. The best car is the fastest, and then all of a sudden the other teams figure out what they got to do, and they get they try to catch up. And I think we know that people are on our tail. People are aware of what we're doing right now. And that's just kind of justifies and gives credibility to what we're doing. And but just like consumers don't want to deal with the big companies, the retailers love working with innovation. They love, when we sit with a Whole Foods market or a Sprouts market or Kroger, Publix, these guys want to work with innovation. They want to feel different. They want to feel special. They don't want just the next Duncan Hines and the next box of Cheerios. Oh, instead of apple and cinnamon, it's apple cinnamon. It's not that exciting what they're doing. So we give them something that's a little bit more innovative, a lot more partnership driven. And we recognize that the big guys will come. And Dave, you can give them my number as soon as the meeting's over. It's fine.
You can pass your own cards out. So I suspect there's some M&A related professionals in the crowd. For each of you, I think 3 of you have done this a few times. For one of you, maybe it's more personal, Jesse. Is it inevitable that you're going to sell to a big strategic here at some point in the near future? And I don't mean to put a time frame on it, but is that the end game? Let's just go down the line.
I would say the next wave for Fody, similar to what we did at Glutino. At Glutino, we raised money from a family office, actually. So I know there were some family offices talking. You guys were talking about family offices earlier. We took money from a family office that helped us get to the finish line, and eventually at Glutino we sold to a strategic, which was great. And now Glutino is part of, after being bought and sold to Pinnacle, and now it's a ConAgra brand. So super, great story there. And I don't think Fody's any different. I think we'll take. We have some money, and we'll take some more from whether it be a family office or a private equity group, and then whether it be 3 years, 5 years, we don't know. If we're lucky enough and we build a great brand that's special, which is what I think we're going to do, then inevitably I would say it's a strategic food company that's going to say, hey, we need to have a gut health, digestive health platform, and I think Fody fits right into that. That's the future, is this whole gut health, better for you wellness platform. So that's kind of in our mind as we build our company to kind of figure out where it has a home in five years down the road.
Okay, so is it based on, in your mind today, is it based on a size, when you're a certain size? Is it based on a penetration? Is it based on when the competitors get scary? Is it based on when they knock on your door?
Yes.
Good answer, good answer.
For us, there's, as I said earlier, I think we all have our place. We all have things that we're very good at, strengths and weaknesses. And so our group is very good at moving fast and building the brand, getting it started. I think there are probably other folks that are better positioned to take it to another level.
Okay, and Todd, you've taken on a shareholder, to say the least, right?
So I've been involved in the kind of the confluence of private equity and franchising for 30 plus years, and so when I became a startup investor in this company in 2009, it was always with the intent that I would bring in a private equity partner, and sold the company in 2015 and remained with as the president and CEO and one of the shareholders, investors in the company. And during that time, we've doubled the size of the company. We've increased EBITDA by 300%, and I would expect since that was in 2015, I'd expect in the next 3 or 4 years our private equity partner will want to exit. There's not a great market for strategics, and I think strategics aren't necessarily great at valuing this type of entity, particularly with as the multiples that we're seeing in the private equity market. And so I would expect it will move up the private equity chain to another senior person there.
So we were definitely not built to sell, or that wasn't in mind. I'm 4th generation on the family farm, and I like to think that I wake up every day surprised by our size and scale at this moment. But it is a very personal juncture, I guess, and the business itself is very mission driven, and we want to see what we're doing and what we're trying to change in terms of agriculture and in our category continue. But I think it's certainly not out of the question if we had the right partner, going back to a personal choice for me as the owner, whether I would want to move on to something else. But part of that is making sure that the legacy of the business continued the way it should, which I think is critical for the success of the business as well.
Okay, thank you. And what I know of you, you're all a little bit different sizes. I think publicly, Todd, you talk about system-wide sales of about $400 million, and I don't know if Stephen wants to talk about his size, but you're all different sized companies up here. When you're growing, especially when you're so disruptive, how do you think about sales growth versus profitability? Jesse, start with you.
Love that question. We've been really focused on sales growth over the last 18 years, and a huge part of that is recognizing the disruption that's happening in our category and the need to be a first mover as much as we possibly can. I like to say that the dust hasn't settled in our category as it transforms. As a larger and larger dollar share of the egg category becomes branded and specialty, organic, free-range, humane. And there's, again, going back to the idea that because it's been a commodity category for so long, there's not a lot of movement that happens. There's frankly not a lot of innovation that happens in our category, and that's both good and bad. The barriers to entry to get into a new market are high because you're not showing up with an innovation necessarily, or a major innovation. But once you're there for the long run. And eggs have a 98% household penetration. Consumers are going to keep buying eggs for the foreseeable future, and they're buying more and more of them. So we looked at the idea that we needed to achieve scale and do it our way, which is scale through small, being big by working with small family farms, but to reach all corners of the country and all retailers. And if that meant the expense of profitability in the short term, that was worthwhile and important.
Yeah, I'd say I take a different approach to it. I think maybe more like an LP than that I am than on just as a startup entrepreneur. And so I really look at maintaining the profit level for every dollar of new revenue. And so, fortunately, we're a franchise distribution model. We use other people's capital to grow our revenue generally, but it has to be maintained at certain scales that we've set, and to maintain the profitability of every new dollar that comes in. So I look at not only the profitability, but also the quality of earnings. And, can we replicate that earning in 2 years out and 3 years out and 5 years out, because the short-term revenue spikes just don't add to valuation, basically.
I think for us, it's about, we're an earlier stage company. We want to grow sales. We want to have, the right sales. I think it's all about scaling up the top line, but not, with margins that we know we'll be able to have a route to a healthy profitability down the road. Right now, it's building distribution, getting their footprint out, getting the awareness out, building a great story, and but knowing in the back of our mind at all times, we know what our healthy margins, and making sure that if we ever have to shift gears to make sure this business is more profitable and showing a higher EBITDA, it's not out of the realm of possibility. So I think right now it's smart sales, healthy sales, with a route to profitability down the road, and we know that whether it be through exit down the road through a CPG or later on, that's something for later on. But as long as we know that we're building up that top line and getting our distribution footprint across the U.S. and abroad, then we'll be in good shape.
Well, we're similar. We're very focused on our gross margin, maintaining our gross margin, and using our SG&A to build top line.
Okay. Rebecca, how much of your product is sold online, and what do you think that's going to be in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, that's interesting. Overall, food and beverage is very low on e-commerce versus other goods. However, Manuka honey is and products like it, small, high value, easily shipped, shelf stable, are very easy to ship. And so our category is much more, is actually probably more in line with just general goods. Overall, I think absolutely food and beverage is going to climb in e-commerce, but I think the smart retailers are going to create reasons for consumers to come into the brick and mortar. And so it's not going to go maybe as fast as folks have predicted.
I know it doesn't apply to you as much, Todd. I've got a different question on technology for you. For Jesse or Stephen, is it a big factor for you in the next 5 years?
It's growing, but right now it's very, very small. And I like to joke that we spend $500 to deliver $200 worth of eggs to Amazon warehouses. But we want to be there. And for our category or for fresh and something perishable food in general, we're not there yet, but it's going to happen, and it's really that last mile of delivery that's going to be transformative. I think a lot of people recognize that, and whether it's going to be in 5 years, probably not 10 years, but it's coming so fast and so much resources being poured into this area that I feel it's inevitable. So we want to be there, make sure that we have a good footprint with Amazon and Kroger, Ocado, et cetera, and that our digital marketing, our digital advertising platform integrates well so that we're prepared.
Yeah, we sell. We started online just to kind of get proof of market. We sell quite a bit of product online, both on our own site at FodiFoods.com and Amazon, of course. But as I look down the road, to Rebecca's point, it's not the same in food as it is in books or other parts of online e-commerce sales. At the end of the day, our brands are going to be bigger and bolder being on grocery store shelves across America. I mean, that's what it takes. People still want to go buy their groceries. They want to touch. They want to read the labels, especially when you're talking about specialty food. They want to see what's in it. They want to see what the allergens are. There's a personal part to food and to baking and cooking and knowing what you're putting in your body. So at the end of the day, I think our products, especially early stage, have to be accessible online, because until we have distribution across the U.S., whether you're in Lincoln, Nebraska, or you're in I don't know some other small town somewhere in America, we want to make sure you have access to our products. But down the road, I think if I had a crystal ball, I think I see Fodi on every grocery store shelf, and I'm sure that includes Amazon as well, of course.
And Todd, I think you use data and technology in a way that your industry doesn't or didn't. Can you explain that and how that makes a difference?
Yeah. For us, 50% of our business is actually from membership base, and so because we're a health and wellness related service, we get a tremendous amount of information about the consumer. So we've been able to do a lot of data mining inside. Fortunately, we had consultants who worked before Cambridge Analytics, so we did a lot inside Facebook to learn about our consumer, what their behavior was. Maybe today we couldn't get that information. And what we've done is really turn that to our web platform. So we were the first in the industry to have kind of direct online booking into the facility so that you could select your therapist, your service, your time, and know that appointment was confirmed. Speed and convenience are critical factors in our business. And then we took it one further step, which is we're the only one in the industry right now doing that, but is bringing a variable-based pricing model to unused inventory. So much like an airline, if we have an open appointment, we have algorithms in the site now that actually mark down the appointment time, and consumers can pre-purchase that time at a discount, but commit to come at a specific time to a specific therapist. And we've basically taken our online appointments from under an old system that we had where you put in a request 3,000 appointments a month, and this past month with our new system, I think we were just over 18,000 appointments. So we launched this in February of this year, and so that technology, that use of data has really helped us grow our comp store sales and membership base.
And for the product providers here, is there anything particular in data or usage of data that you're using that you think others aren't?
I know from our side, we use data in a couple places. First of all, for launching products, it's the most powerful thing. We talked about a little bit what the difference is. The first question you had asked, Dave, about what's different today than it was 20 years ago. We have a direct line with our consumers. So we literally ask our consumers that our website is not just about selling products, it's about building a community. So we actually have them sign up. They want to sign up. They want to talk to us. We ask them, hey, what would you like us to launch next? What flavor pasta sauce would you prefer? What bars would you like to have? Do you like salsa? And they actually tell us what to launch next. So I don't want to take, it takes the guesswork out, but it certainly helps when you know ahead of time that your customers want it. On top of that, a big thing in our industry in looking at data is what's selling. What's selling on the store shelves? What's the price points? And so we study that to know kind of what to launch, when to launch it, and work our way back that way.
Yeah, we absolutely live on data in virtually every area of our business. First, looking at syndicated data, I think better than anyone in our category does at the moment. And that's understanding how our trade activity, how our promotions perform, how that can be fine-tuned and create a selling story for retailers and consumers, what our competitors are doing, and whether they're effective, whether they're being aggressive or moving, et cetera. So we can take on the role of category captain by using that data and presenting it well. Beyond that, on the advertising, we're the second largest company that's spending dollars in advertising in eggs. And a lot of that is now on social media channels, digital. And we're able to use the data that's gleaned from that to fine-tune our creative process and understand what's resonating with consumers. And then finally, on our operations side, if you're lean manufacturing, if you're not measuring what you're doing, then you have no idea. It's taking the guesswork out of it. So we measure everything that we possibly can that makes sense to create efficiencies to back up the small family farm relatively inefficient model.
Any questions from the audience? I can't see that far. Someone's got their hand up.
I wanted to ask the panel, what's the state of slotting fees? And I want to ask Mr. Singer, are slotting fees allowed in Canada?
So slotting fees across the U.S. and Canada really doesn't change much. In a lot of cases, we have to give a case of a product per SKU or per product per store. So if you get in 100 stores and you have 10 products, it's going to cost you the cost of your products to get in. You're basically filling their shelves one time. As painful as it is at times, and it's a big number on your P&L as you grow. If you believe in your products, I think it's a no. There's no decision to be made. I think that we believe in our products. There's going to be an investment. You have to pay a little bit to play, but all it takes is people. If you believe people are going to buy your products, it's not a hard decision.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, writing a check for a slotting fee is that's the check that I'm happiest to write at all times. And some of that I think is is echoing you. It's born out of confidence that the product is going to do well, that you're going to recoup that. But I think there are arguably some economic efficiencies to slotting fees, as painful as they are to write to a retailer.
It hurts.
So one of our family office legacy assets used to be Back to the Lane, a noted organic supermarket that didn't survive the Amazon effect. So I'd like to invite, I'm not so sure about the spot one, although it sounds intriguing maybe in our Southampton location. We have 10,000 square feet in prime landmark Brooklyn, and I'd like to invite the three of you to set up this. You had me on the word community, Steve. Set up your footprint in New York City if you haven't already done so.
Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, we're excited by those types of invitations. It really is about community. In our business, it is. We're a pretty. It's an interesting segment of the market to be in. Digestive health and IBS, and it's not something that people are proud to talk about. It's a taboo subject. People are not walking around saying, "Hey, I got IBS. How you doing, John?" They just don't do that. So we try to make people feel more comfortable. We want to make people listen. IBS, IBD, digestive health is the #2 cause for missed work, missed school in America after the common cold. Just to put it in perspective, 15% of the people in America suffer from some sort of digestive sensitivities. So it is about community, and it's about sticking together, and it's about, hey, you can trust our brand. So yeah, those types of invitations, that means a lot to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse, I had lost your voice when you turned the whip. Did you say that you're the second largest company advertising eggs?
He sells a lot of eggs, this guy.
Yeah. I'm the published author of my Bible for the extended lifespan, and I write about Pete and Jerry's as well, and I can tell you that they sell a lot of eggs for good reason. They're the best.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so next to our principal competitor, who's been at it for a little longer than we have, Eggland's Best, we are the second largest advertiser, second largest spend nationally on branded eggs.
And Stephen, can I just ask you, in all the work you did to prepare your product, had you also looked into, the use of digestives, both enzymes, betaine hydrochloride, in the conditions that you are addressing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't want to get too technical, but all of our products are what they call low FODMAP. That's an acronym that comes from Australia. That's fermentable carbohydrates that ferment in your gut, sugars, and so we work with lab testing in Australia to make sure all of our products meet the requirements of the diet. There's many different ways, to your point, digestive enzymes and probiotics, and there's so many different areas of digestive health.
Yes.
So we try to meet one specific, well, it's not specific, like one diet regime that we try to follow. But to your point, there's a lot of other ways, and we're always looking to innovate within our products to make them even better.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank the panelists and thank you all for participating.